Welcome to RMM Help. In this session we provide an overview of the stock management or stock control system in RMM. Some maintenance organisations do not hold physical stock items. What they'll do is purchase parts required on a just-in-time basis, but they may still want a simple listing of parts used in maintenance. If I take the stock option from the main menu, this gives us a list of all our stock parts. Now, if we didn't want to have stock control, we could just enter these product codes and a description of the part, and then we could have a sales price here, which would actually be the price of parts used when we're doing our feedback in our maintenance, and it would be as simple as that in setting those parts up. If we manage our stock, and if we do keep a stock holding, then we'll certainly be required from a financial accounting point of view to calculate the cost of stock in hand at least once a year. Then we'll utilize the system as a stock control system. And the starting point then would be in administration and in the control file, and in our defaults tab 2 we've got a stock control option here. The first item that we have is print stock labels during the receipt process. So we order new parts, they are received, we book them into the system, and in that same operation it will automatically produce a label where we could, for instance, stick that onto the bin location on the rack where the parts have been put. It would have a barcode on it and stock description. It might even have the date that the last items were received. If we were enabling negative stock, this would be where an actual stock holding would be 0, and we wanted to allocate parts to a job, even although they weren't in stock and they were expected. That would then cause our stock to go into a negative situation. So if we don't want that to happen, we don't tick that box, and what will happen when we try to issue the parts, it will say that there aren't any in stock. And finally, in the control file we've got this last batch option. All the stock movements in our stock control system we refer to as transactions, and they include issues, receipts, transfers between locations, adjustments, returns, and stock taking. Most of those can be entered into batches, and a running total is kept, so that automatically accrues. Our stock files, they're still here in administration, and we take the stock code files option, and the first items that we have are these stock groups. These are user definable codes, and this enables us to group our stock items together. So we might have a group for electrical items. If we were buying medical electronic spares, we might have a group for them. There's also a system generated stock type, which isn't editable by ourselves, and they are stocked items. So with stocked items we keep a running stock level, and they're included when we produce a stock valuation. And then we have non-stocked items, so these would be items where we, as we mentioned before, we enter those where we can use the parts description and the selling price in our feedback to calculate a material cost. And we can also have service items. That might be something, for instance, that you might want to be able to identify, such as cleaning. So we could put a unit price for cleaning, and that would then appear in the job details. If these were external clients that we were doing that work for, and we produced an invoice, then clearly we could have that cleaning as a description. In addition to that, we have stock locations. So our stock control system is a multi-location system, and those locations can either be a geographical location. So in our first instance, we've got Hull workshop stores, and we could then have stationery stores, laundry stores, and so on. So they're user definable, and there isn't any limit to the number that we keep. And when we look at a stock record, you'll see that if that stock record is held in multiple locations, we keep a total value, which is the grossed up value of all of the stock levels at each location. We've then got some other codes here, VAT codes and our cost centers. They're the normal cost centers that we have in ResMan, and supplier details, which are extracted from the name and address details, and there are separate video help files on each of those options. So that's how we set up the stock system, and we'll now go back into stock. And this stock listing that we have here, you'll notice is a color-coded list. The color coding is to be able to highlight to us where we need to be able to take some action. If, for instance, they're in red, it means that the stock level is either 0 or less. If it's orange, it shows us that the stock level's actually below the reorder level. And although there aren't any on this page, if there were any in yellow, it shows us that one of the multiple locations has a stock level which is 0 or less. We might want to transfer some stock from one location to another in that case. Our main stock issues will be from selecting parts during feedback. However, there's batch processing for all of our transaction types, and this shows a listing of all of the batches, and we could create new batches if we wanted to, and these would be the transaction types that we would be creating those batches. So if we had stock receipts or returns of parts that weren't used during a job, we can then enter them back into the system. If we now look at the actual detail of a stock part, we'll choose one of these. If I choose this brass valve here, this is a tabbed form. The top part of this contains all of the static information relating to the supplier, the stock group, the VAT code, cost center, and so on. And at the bottom here we have our purchase information showing the purchase price, our unit of purchase, unit of issue, and the selling price, which is the value that would be shown in work feedback when we're actually selecting parts. You'll notice that we have the stock level here. Our stock level is 28, and as we mentioned before, if we've got multiple stock locations, that's the total level. So if I go to levels, we've actually got 2 locations here, and we've got 23 in one and 5 in another, totaling 28. And from an audit point of view, we've got a list of all the transactions here, and if we were to total up all these positive and negative values, they would again equal the total of our stock details. From an audit point of view, we have full reporting, and there's a selection of reports for audit and for stock valuation, and that also includes a stock take report. And if I go into stock take, you can see that we've already got 2 outstanding stock takes. If I have a look at this one here, this is a form which enables us to feed back levels, and those levels would be entered onto a report which is produced, and we could produce that by bin location, by groups of stock items, and we can do that at any time during the year and as often as we want. So we would handwrite them onto that report, and then we would enter the values back here. It's also possible to run that stock take and enter the details onto a mobile device, and then when the values are entered into the mobile device and it synchronizes back with RMM, all of the stock parts would be updated automatically. So this concludes the overview of stock management in RMM.